to the Serpent Temple podcast and YouTube channel. I am here with me, Floyd, and Julie Weir, Head of Music for Nations. Thank you so much for coming.
Lovely to see you all in the Sony HQ today.
It's very cool here, literally and metaphysically.
Okay, well, we do have the aircon on today because it's quite sunny.
It is quite sunny. We're going to do a Psycard reading with you.
Okay.
Feel free to shuffle the cards, and
put these down.
Each card is a Jungian archetype. So they all represent something like mother, father, birth, death. They're not all literal. They can be as literal or as figurative as you want. So we'll turn them over one at a time. Each time you turn a card over, I'll read you the description from here, and you can tell me what you think.
Okay.
I have to say, that was definitely one of the smoother shuffles we've had as well.
Oh, really?
We've had some people just pick up and just fumble the deck.
Oh, really? I'm a magic geek, so...
Are you?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's one of my things.
Like Penn and Teller, or like proper like occult style?
A bit of both.
Nice.
But I'm not going to say that I don't love Penn and Teller.
They are great.
I do. And I got into magic as a kid, so...
Oh, cool.
I still love that program, Penn and Teller for me. That was just such a great format, wasn't it? I'll watch like old clips every now and again.
It's like Britain's Got Talent, but proper talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did the bullet trick. I remember watching that as a kid and being amazed by it.
It's terrifying. I've seen them so many times on stage. I absolutely love them. I saw them for the first time in Vegas.
Oh my God.
And it was brilliant. So every time they come to London now, I'm the one at the front, or like that, trying to see them doing something wrong.
They must be amazing live.
Oh, they're fantastic. I love it. We should go to the Magic Circle.
I would love that. There's like a magic shop in Hatton Garden. Have you ever been there?
Yes, it's International Magic. Jerry Sadowitz used to work there.
Nice.
In fact, I think he probably still does.
Maybe.
Oh, hey, God, he was kind of like Frankie Boyle before Frankie Boyle, wasn't he?
He's fantastic, though.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic magician.
Yeah.
And a slightly terrifying human.
You've got to be a bit scared. Amazing. So I'll let you put these down.
Right.
So we'll do 3 in a row like this, and then 1 above, 1 below.
Okay.
So that will be... Okay. Normally we don't turn them over straight away.
Okay, sorry.
But that's good. That's the first card. But we'll do the rest face down.
Okay.
And then we'll do the middle. That's your present. And then your future. And the 1 below, your motivating force.
Right.
The 1 above, your goal.
Okay.
So your past, fascinatingly, is the scales. 24. I'll read this one to you. That's a really interesting card. So a pair of scales with fruit hanging from an ancient twisted fruit tree. This symbol stands for justice, moderation, prudence, and a sense of balance in our affairs. It represents common sense and a harmony with the world of nature.
That's quite a lot to take in, isn't it, really?
I guess, like, with your background, like, working with... You literally set up your own labels. You've been part of, like, the underground scene for a long time. And then you balance that out working since 2016.
Oh, that's a great interpretation still, isn't it? Really? That's much better than I was going to say.
So you've been here.
That's really good, actually.
I think it's true. Like, there's a lot of balance in what you do because you have that underground background. You've been DIY, and now you're here and you're bringing that to the bands that you work with at Sony.
I love that, and that's actually what we're trying to do at Music for Nations, without a doubt. Bring an independent spirit to a major label. So we've got kind of the power and like sort of the investment, but we've got like sort of the hand-holding, caretaking spirit as well.
I was going to ask, so are you from Cumbria originally?
I am indeed from Cumbria, which brings in nature. Are you going to bring that in?
I was going to try to segue into that.
So good.
I was just going to ask, because one of my favourite places to visit is Windermere. I absolutely love it around like the lake and just the Peak Districts. And it's just so stunning up there.
I love, but I'm from Cumbria, and I'm a very, very proud Cumbrian, actually. And I do a lot of charity work with Cumbrian charities as well. But my favourite place is Castlerigg Stone Circle, which is just outside Keswick.
Okay, I've not been there.
It's absolutely fantastic. If you go to Windermere, look at that goose pimples. But if you go to Windermere, it's like about a 15-20 minute drive from there, and it's actually one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, but it's also one of the most inhospitable places I've ever been. If it's lovely weather, it's beautiful. You can see right down into like sort of the lakes, valleys and everything. But if it's a really, really crappy day, it is the most... There's no shelter. You can feel every like sort of piece of rain, every gust of wind, and it's freezing and really muddy. But that's again, going back to balance, isn't it? Really? But it's fantastic. So Castlerigg, remember that?
We were going to do Scaffold Pike once, but it was just bad weather, so we were like, no.
You can't even touch that if it's bad weather.
Yeah.
It's screwy and it's really steep as well.
Yeah. But yeah, just it's just must be such a contrast coming from like a place like Cumbria to London. But you spent some time in Leeds for a bit, right?
Well, that's almost like halfway, isn't it, I suppose, if you look at that. So I went to uni in Manchester, then I worked in Leeds at a record shop called Nail Records. So that's where I've been involved in the industry for a very long time. But I think Leeds for me still is possibly, Leeds and Manchester are probably my spiritual homes apart from Cumbria, because it's kind of big cities with like sort of a village feeling, or at least like sort of the scene feelings are quite small there. And I mean, Leeds I go back to now and I still have loads of friends there. Manchester we went back to recently because we did some stuff with the BBC, with Witch Fever, with BBC Introducing, which was great, and The Gossip as well. And Manchester feels slightly alien now, I suppose, because it's so, a bit like you were saying about King's Cross. Manchester is a very different beast to when I was there. Manchester was a bit more like sort of rough and ready, shall we say, when I was there in 89 to 92. But it's just, Leeds is still like sort of a very vibrant place. Manchester feels like a lot of money's gone into it, but there's still so much great stuff happening there musically and culturally. Art scene wise, there's a great like sort of booming population there.
I always kind of lament the fact that Damnation moved from Leeds to Manchester, because then I used to love to go up to Leeds once a year, and especially because my parents are from Scotland, and I think it's that little bit north, so I was able to like just embrace the cold weather there as well.
Yeah, take your big coat with you. Yeah, take your big coat.
This man does not have a big coat.
I don't own a coat.
You're one of them. Yeah. You've not gone soft coming down south. Yeah. If ever I say I'm cold now, if I go up to Cumbria, my dad's like, "You've gone nesh." Nesh. Where'd you gone soft?
Nesh. I like that a lot. Yeah. I've appropriated that now. Nesh.
Feel free to drop that in at any point.
Thank you.
It's like Sesame Street today, isn't it? Today's been brought to you by the word nesh.
N is for Nesh. With the scales as well, like a lot of what you do, I guess, in your work is balancing and weighing and judging. So I guess, you've done A&R work and stuff as well, which I find really fascinating. And I think a lot of people don't really know what that is. It's just a word that you think you just sign bands, but you also work with them to develop their like repertoire and stuff too.
Absolutely. And I mean, being an A&R person, I mean, we like to say we're not hands-off A&R, but we're not brutal A&R here, because I mean generally we find a band and we sign an artist because we like what they're doing, so we're not here to knock the corners off. We're very much here to elevate and develop and grow who they are. And I mean, I think if you're going to sign a band and say, well, you know what, I signed that, but what I really, it's like signing a circle and wanting a triangle. It's not what we do really. But it's getting harder and harder in the A&R world to find great things to develop, I think. And we don't sign very many artists purely because of that.
When you do, say you sign an artist that's like got really good engagement, they're like, you can tell they're about to go off. What do you do to try and elevate them? Because I imagine it's a lot harder now than it was 10 years ago.
There's a lot of investment involved, there's a lot of time involved, there's a lot of blood, sweat and tears involved really. But I mean, I think we've kind of stepped away from signing bands that are literally just baby bands, because I like to see people standing on their own 2 feet for a bit and learning a bit. And I always do say to artists, it's the more that you can do in the industry on your own, and the more that you can learn on your own, it's like, number one, gives you the best bullshit detector in the world, and you need to learn who the idiots are and who the people you can trust are. And I think that's something that takes a few years to get your eye in, as it were. But it's also learning stuff and developing at your own rate and knowing what you want to be, and actually seeing people really want it is what we need, because a lot of artists now just quit before they even get to a stage where they've transcended almost. I mean, you look at bands like Bring Me and stuff, and they were like 4 albums in before things really started moving and shaking for them. There's a lot of artists out there who've put in like a decade's worth of work before they start gaining any success. And you've got to want it, you've got to believe in it, and you've got to know your own art. You've got to understand who you are, what the imagery is, what your aesthetic is, and how hard this industry actually is. Everybody thinks like artists are out there going, ooh, they're on tour. Little do they realise there's like 6 of them in the back of a splitter van having a terrible time. No solids on the bus and all that. And then even if they're on a nightliner, it's not the most comfortable thing. Everything smells like feet and bum. And everybody's surviving on a pot noodle sandwich. It's not the most, that's like sort of extreme situations, and a lot of bands do go out there and do really well, but developing artists and the more underground and left field artists, they're not out there, they're not being chauffeur driven around in like sort of a gold tinted Ferrari or anything. They're actually out there probably driving themselves, doing their own merch and doing their own teching.
It's really interesting. I do wonder, because now, I guess compared to say the 70s or the 80s, if you got signed, you're good. You got probably a big pot of money, the conditions weren't as hard, whereas now even your successful artists probably still have day jobs.
Some of them, yes, some of them don't. But I mean, it depends on level of advances. It depends on the kind of music as well. I mean, some kind of artists that we sign aren't going to be artists who are ever going to be selling 1 million copies, but they will sell enough to recoup and do well, and our big aim is to help people get to the stage where they can just live off their music. Because when you are doing a day job on top of everything else and you're going out on tour and you have a family and everything else, it's I don't have children, I've got a dog and a partner, but I can't even imagine being in this industry and having children as well and being a mum, and a lot of my friends in this building I don't know how they do it. I genuinely don't know how they do
I've literally had that thought. I had to do the maths recently and I was just no, I can have a baby or I can have a band.
Yeah.
It's literally that choice.
It's pretty much that, because your lifestyle becomes your life.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I mean, I kind of do you know that bit in Wayne's World where the guy who's like the roadie just goes, I got nowhere else to go. Where it's just I've always worked in the music industry and I just can't see me doing anything else. Not what I want to, mind you, but it's my world, and that's where I'm most comfortable, I suppose.
I also want to, because I guess a lot of people listening probably are in bands, and I think a really interesting thing is I think a lot of non-band people might think that bands get their money from streaming and shows, but I imagine you guys also work in sync and stuff like that and try and get revenue.
We work across everything. I mean, coming from an independent label, and obviously first off it was a black metal label, then it was a new metal label, and now I'm doing more commercial leaning stuff, but still left field leaning stuff with Sony. But we've always worked with artists right across the board, and I always say that people who don't look at the big world picture in music are a bit cultural atheists, and it's we like reading. Would you like films? What film? All that kind of stuff. So I think you've got to look at a lot of different silos in the music industry. So you get the record deal is a tiny part of what artists do these days. Live's huge, merch is huge. I mean, sync income's brilliant. I used to work for a film company as well. So the sync part of it all is, and this is I don't think I've ever told anybody this. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with Star Wars.
Oh, wow.
As you do, you're allowed to be when you're a kid.
Yeah.
And I used to lie down in the back of the car when we were driving around Cumbria, when it was very dark, no light pollution, and I used to look out the back of the car, and in my head I would hear music playing and I'd pretend I was in Star Wars. So I've always had a weird soundtrack to my life going on, and now that doing work in the sync world, it's effectively doing that, and I love it, and I can always see music to go with picture. So why didn't I do that? It took me 52 years to realise that, but never mind.
It's a fascinating
work
skill.
with it, but,
Yeah, I think I never really realised it was a thing until a few years ago.
It's huge.
And the
It's
money
really
in
huge.
sync is, from what I understand, is bigger than a lot of other things I've seen.
It is and it isn't. I mean, it used to be a lot bigger a long time ago. The gaming world is still fantastic for rock and alternative and metal music, and we work with the games companies quite a lot here because a lot of the people I work with are gamers. I'm not quite as into gaming as my partner or the lads I work with, but I understand the value of it, and there's a huge crossover with wrestling, gaming, music, film, theatre, all that kind of stuff. So gaming is important for sync. Brands is where it generally comes from, but it's not as big as it used to be, but neither is anything. You know what I mean? You could have got 6 figures in the 80s. There's still those deals around, but not so much now. There's more of them though. That's the thing.
It's funny you mentioned wrestling, because I've always said when you go to a wrestling show, the crowd at a metal or an alternative show in the wrestling show is so interchangeable.
Yeah.
You just swap out a metal shirt for a wrestling shirt. And it's the same people.
Absolutely. And actually, you know what? I bloody love it. Yeah. It's brilliant. I went to see WWE at the O2 a few years ago.
Wow.
It's the only time I've done it, because I thought it's going to be... Because we were doing some sync work with WWE actually at the time, and I thought it was going to be a bit And by the end of it all, I'd moved 6 rows forward. My friend had pretended she didn't know me. And I think I was shouting for Seamus at the time. So, yeah.
He's great. He's just come back recently, actually.
Oh, was he? Are you a wrestling fan?
Yeah. I've always been a big wrestling fan. But the interesting thing I find, the connection between music and wrestling, in the 90s, it was so much more alternative bass, and it's had this weird shift in the 2010s where it's kind of like switched to kind of a bit more like hip-hop. And it's
all of Ireland.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the wrestling looks like Love Island now. So everybody's like everybody used to be a bit more gnarly, didn't they?
Yeah.
And more cartoony. Yeah. But now everybody's like sort of print and preen.
Yeah, it's a bit like Abercrombie and Fitch models was.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Before it was like, like Motorhead, really.
I mean, the real wrestling I grew up with was like sort of Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks. When I was, because my nana used to watch it when I was a kid. So I used to love that stuff.
My favourite Big Daddy fact is that his real name is Shirley Crabtree.
Yeah, Shirley Crabtree. It's brilliant.
That's a much better wrestling name than Big Daddy.
It's an excuse to have a fight, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
Should we move on to the present?
Absolutely.
Let's go for it.
One?
Yes, that one.
Ooh,
the beast. Ooh. Wow, okay. All right, number 33, good number. The beast. A dragon bars the path, fearful and malevolent. The characteristics of the dragon represent the challenge of facing up to evil. It stands for confrontation with the powerful dark forces of our unconscious mind, also for the bad temper and spiteful side of our natures, or that of others.
Crikey, that's dark, isn't it?
I bet bands are like dragons. Maybe you've probably got to deal with some dragons.
I think the majority of artists we work with, we're quite lucky that we sign people who are pretty solid on what they want to do. Maybe, I don't know, maybe some people can be a little bit unrealistic sometimes, but I think that's the worst that we get. We try and we're going to be spending a lot of time with these people, so when you sign them and the team around them, you've got to make sure the people that you want to hang out with, really, because if you're spending like sort of 60 hours a week with people, it's long, and weekends and evenings. Yeah. So that's actually not as... I mean, it's a beast of a building in the company, I would imagine, because it's a huge entity. But I don't think there's anything here that's actually quite malevolent. That's the best part of it. It's a very collaborative environment. So
that's good.
That's good. And for the little guys like us, we're very much fostered and left to get on with it. And then there's people to help us if we need it.
Are you ever perceived as a beast for being in the...
Daily. HR.
That was supposed to be like as a company. I didn't mean individually, of course not. No, I imagine no one's ever done that.
So you'd be surprised.
Oh my goodness, no, because you work for Sony or you're part of Sony, I imagine people view you to be more corporate than you actually are at times.
I think that's a really good point, actually, and I think I'd worked with Sony for like 25 years before I actually came into the building, and I'd always been very much on the fringes of it all, because I'd worked with people like Bullet, and I signed Bring the Horizon to the company anyway. But I think people perceive a large company as something that homogenises people, that assimilates them and spits them out, and I've never seen that here, to be quite honest. I've seen people be like sort of lifted, and I've seen people be developed, but I've never seen them force anybody to do anything, not to my experience anyway, that they haven't wanted to do, and definitely not with us. But the underground, I know I did come in here and people, I had a few "you've sold out" emails, and I'm like, I've earned my stripes at that point, sunshine. I've got tights older than you, so whatever.
Why wouldn't you want to move up? Because then you can, a rising tide bears all ships.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. And also, out of different positions comes great art, right?
Precisely. And
also the fact that there's an entity like us inside such a huge company says a lot about the progressive nature of the company, I think.
And if it wasn't you here, it might have been someone who doesn't really care for this
exactly.
kind of thing.
Might have been some knobhead, not me.
An actual beast.
Yeah, an actual beast. An actual dragon.
Should we move on to the future?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Mother.
Just after what we talked about as well.
Goodness. Mother to all the bands, I suppose. Let me read this. One-handed. The mother. A mother is shown seated in a large wicker chair with her children close to her, the baby tied to her back. It stands for the feminine mothering side in our nature, the part of us that is sustaining and protective, yet at times threatens to smother our individuality.
that could be just always looking out for people, definitely. Because I think I do have a tendency to want to try and sort out all problems. And that's probably one of my weakest faults. It's like, people have got to learn. You don't have to sort everything out for them. Try and learn. And then you don't do it again. You know?
I guess there's that. When you see someone about to make a mistake, it's really difficult not to step in.
So hard. And also, if anything goes wrong on tour, we're the first people that is the port of call generally, if the artists don't have strong management. So yeah, I would say that. But also, I suppose, in personal life as well. That's always been my case. So, but I like it, you know.
It's probably why you're good at what you do.
It's probably why I don't have kids, because I got hundreds of them. Hundreds of them.
Yeah, sometimes our weaknesses are also our strengths. And it's an interesting trait to have, and I think it's an important one. If you literally have a roster, it's like it's a position where you are nurturing all those bands.
It's very true, actually, very true.
I think Bring Me is such a good example of a band that I think had like quite a tumultuous start at points, but then just completely like found their own niche and weren't afraid to like experiment and stuff. So I reckon that's kind of like a good example of a band that was allowed to kind of make errors and then kind of come around to where they needed to be.
Oh, they were, and I mean, I signed them. I mean, obviously they'd already put out an EP on 30 Days a Night, the one Jamie Farrell's label. I don't know if you know Jamie, who got Leeds links as well. But I'd signed them after the first EP there, and I mean, there was some hard times there, I think, really, because I mean, it's almost like the teething years, I would imagine. But we worked together for 4 records, and look at them now. They talk about bands that have transcended, and they're like the metalcore version of Bowie. They're always reinventing. They're always like sort of changing and developing and evolving. There's no other band like them. I've said that for years, and there really isn't. And all he's had is demons, and he's got through it, and he's come out as a better person, I would imagine.
Yeah, great success with his like clothing label as well, right? Like Drop
He's
Dead.
Super smart though. Yeah. He was so far ahead of the curve, because I remember when I signed them, and it was like the biggest band on MySpace, and they signed to like a tiny independent label based in like a room in West London, you know. And yeah, it was fantastic times that. But I mean, crikey, MySpace. Whew, glad that's gone away. I had some haircuts on there, I tell you.
Yeah, it was. What was the band I remember blowing up? There was that deathcore band, Wake in the Cadaver. You would remember them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was just
Job for a Cowboy.
Job for a Cowboy.
Job for a Cowboy would be, yeah.
But Asking Alexandria came out of that period as well, didn't it? Yeah.
I kind of miss it. I kind of want to return to MySpace.
No, you don't. No.
Do you remember the drama about who your top?
Oh my god! When it was like the top 3, then it was the top 9.
Yeah,
then they had to expand that because everybody was falling out with each other.
It was amazing.
Oh, it's terrible, wasn't it?
It was terrible, but I kind of miss how simple those days were. Now it's like everything's algorithmless, and yeah, it's kind of that's the beast, really.
Very true. But I mean, but now I suppose it's harder for bands to break because there's so many different places to be. Yeah. You know, and I mean, at least MySpace was like one big shop window. It was like the Selfridges of everything. Now you've got you got your Reddits, you got your Discords, you got your Twitches, and it's like I feel for artists on that front, because it is part of their job and it comes with what they do. But it's a full-time job. It's a nerve-shredding full-time job. Just looking at comments, I haven't been able to weather those comments, I think. But some of it says don't be in a band if you can't take the criticism. But I don't know if I would personally be able to deal with that kind of level of keyboard warrior malevolence, I suppose, because it's just...
That's a good name for a band.
Keyboard warrior malevolence.
That's your band.
But it is really hard. I mean, having the time to do it as well. I mean, when I first started in this industry, it was basically be in band, create good music, make sure that your artwork isn't rubbish and you don't look awful. And that's pretty much it. Now it's everything. You've got to think about absolutely everything. And there's just so much there to unpack. I mean, I'm not surprised there is a lot of mental health issues in this industry, because the level of stress on artists is horrendous. And on the road's a very different thing as well.
I want to ask quickly just a little bit about your time in Cacophonous Records.
Oh, God, yeah.
So, because I've always been a big black metal fan. So, like, what was it like? Because, I mean, talking about the beasts and bands being kind of...
Nicely done.
Talking about bands being kind of uncompromising. Because you helped kind of, like, bands like Credo and Dimmu, right? So, like, was there any ever, like, tension between
Cradle was horrendous, and I mean,
Really?
I think Danny would admit that as well. We're friends again now because we're working together. But I think at the time it was very much Cradle were like the Bring Me of black metal, I suppose, if you look at it that way, because they also transcended where they are. And I mean, Danny again, he's someone else who's super smart. He's got a really ahead of his time sense of aesthetic. I mean, he was working with Nigel Wingrove and stuff when nobody knew who he was, when he was just working with Salvation Films. I've always loved that artwork. It's very Bob Carlos Clark. But I think Danny and me came to a few arguments, I think, really. And because I always thought he was quite a hard person to work with. Maybe I was quite hard to work with then as well because I was finding my feet. But I think that particular time, being a woman in that world wasn't particularly easy.
Oh, I can imagine.
Because I think it was basically me and Tiziana from Misanthropy, and that was about it. And then who else did we meet at the time? Stephen O'Malley.
Oh yeah.
Was doing, God, what was the fanzine he was doing? He was doing a US fanzine. He was really good mates with Tiziana, so I've been friends with Stephen since those years, and Greg. But yeah, it was a tiny world. But I wouldn't change it because I learned a bloody hell of a lot. Going on tour with like sort of some black metal bands was not something I would wish to do again. But I mean, there's some wonderful people. The guys in Marduk were really fantastic. And then the Gehenna were one of my favourite bands at the time. They were great. I don't really know what they're doing now. The Cacophonous have still got a catalogue, I think. And then Dimmu have gone on to win Grammys, Norwegian Grammys, which is fantastic. So they've also... I mean, Dimmu are really smart because they're really good on the sense of aesthetic as well. And that's always transcended. So. But that was only one label. I didn't sign Dimmu or Cradle. I was label manager at that point. But that was Nihil was the label manager. Well, that was the A&R person then, which I don't actually know what he's doing now.
Yeah, it's funny because like I've always believed as well, like, you know, everyone could stand to learn something from working a bit of retail, whether it be a record store or just anything. Is there anything you experienced while working at a record store that you've always carried with you in terms of like how you deal with people?
You never know who you're going to speak to. Number one, there used to be a guy that came in Nail every Wednesday afternoon at about 4:00, and the lads would just leg it and just leave me alone with this one guy. And he would spend about 100 quid, and this is years ago. He'd buy like 10 CDs,
wow,
or maybe even more than that. Like this is every week. You know, it's not just £50, man. He would buy everything, but he'd want to listen to everything and talk about everything. So he'd come in at 4, and I would end up leaving the shop at about 7:30 when he shuts at like 5:30. It's thoroughly drained of any kind of energy. But it's just, I mean, the guy was a welder. He was absolutely covered in scars. His hands are all burnt. But he just wanted interaction. He wanted to talk about what he loved. So that's one thing. You never knew who you're going to speak to. Be nice to reps, because they give you free shit. Then whether that happens in record stores now, I don't know. And also, be careful of the Nazis is the other one, because we used to have a Combat 18 cell near Records, and we got the store covered in stuff, which wasn't good at that time. Yeah, that wasn't great. But that stopped. We got followed and all that kind of stuff. We stocked Searchlight at the time, that's what. And I was the only girl who worked there, so they used to follow me home and stuff like that.
Christ.
Yeah, he used to follow me to get me my butty in Leeds Market. Yeah. But it stopped. But you just got to be brave. Also, I think record stores are the lifeblood of everything. I absolutely love it. If I hadn't worked in a record shop, I don't think I'd be doing a lot of what I'm doing now, because I got to know a lot of the like sort of more left field artists through that. And there used to be a club in Leeds at the time. Oh God, what was he called? There was a DJ there called. It was Back to Basics. And there was a DJ called Ali Cook, and he used to do like these insane mixes. And he used to come in and he used to buy like Ministry and Revolt and Cox, and like Rollins bands, sort of things, and then drop it into all of the stuff that they were doing there. It was brilliant. And sadly, he was killed in a car crash, but he did such a lot of stuff for Leeds club culture. It's brilliant.
That's one thing I miss about consuming music. I used to love just picking out a random CD or choosing to consume music based on things like the artwork or even like the band name and stuff. I remember that's how I discovered like Dying Fetus, for example. Yeah. I was just like, well, I've got to listen to this. This is just the most ridiculous band name I've ever heard. But then,
I also remember Autopsy, Severed Survival, same thing.
Oh, yeah, God, yeah. What a great CD as well.
Such a terrible album cover. Yeah. But it's brilliant. But you can't not look at it. It's like staring at the sun.
Talking of Autopsy, I've got to bring this up. There was, I once picked up their CD Shit Fun, which is the worst best album cover ever. It's just a man with a turd in his mouth. It's just the worst.
You can't help it though, can you? It's just Gua dialed up. Really.
Where do you buy your records from now?
Where do I buy my records from? Sadly, most of mine sent.
Oh, fair enough.
Which is really bad. But if I do buy it I generally try and go to independent shops actually, or I order them, or I buy stuff second hand actually, which is I still do love a crate dig. I really do. But I'm a huge, please don't judge me, I'm a huge Justified Ancients and Moo Moo fan. And I do collect everything to do with them, which is really bad.
Justified Ancients and Moo.
Oh my God. Well, you need to go and Google it, don't you? And you'll hate it. But it's actually, it's like art meets music, but it's like, so it's basically that we're taking the mickey out of the music industry. But it's really interesting. But I collect that through friends, shall I say, who may run second-hand record businesses and keep eyes out for me. But then if I really like stuff, I'll go out and buy the vinyl and then put it in a cupboard and don't play it, and then listen to it on Spotify and then think, what have I done? Which I've just realised how much of that I did because I've just cleaned my living room out and got it painted, and then realised how many CDs I've got rid of. God, CDs.
I know. There's hundreds and hundreds that are just taking up space. But the worst thing was it was when the teeth break in the middle, and then it was just
so annoying.
Yeah.
See, I'm quite anal about that. I had to pop the thing out and put a new one in.
I always have to
really
replace
bad.
it because it annoyed me.
So especially if you've got a double pack or like sort of a quadruple pack, when it just flies out when you open it, it's just really infuriating.
Do you remember that place in Camden where you could sell your CDs?
The Record and Tape Exchange.
Yeah,
it's still there,
I used to go
think.
in there all the time to get like money from my CDs.
But I used to do that when I used to work in Notting Hill as well, because the big ones are in Notting Hill.
Oh yeah, Notting Hill has some great.
That's really good. But I don't know if you remember Resurrection Records in Camden years ago, downstairs. Goth record shop.
I got all my hoodies and stuff from there.
Yeah.
So I think
There was Metalheads and there was Resurrection.
Yeah.
Which was the really good Camden record shops.
Yeah, so there's some really good
Support
ones
the
still there.
independent shops, people, not Amazon.
My favourite.
joking.
I
Support
always loved Sister Ray on Berwick Street. Thought that was a
I love
great
Sister
one.
Ray, yeah. But Sister Ray is a really, really brilliant one because, again, you'd walk through that and go, oh, that looks really interesting, and they do the great, like, sort of, I work at a record shop, therefore I know everything. So write a little bit about it.
Yeah.
But I've bought so many records because of that.
Yeah.
I went through a really, like, sort of good 60s garage phase.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Which I absolutely loved, and that was mainly bought from Sister Ray because I didn't know anything about it, so I started buying stuff from there.
It's a really exciting place to shop, and I think when I went years ago, you could literally try the records. Sometimes you can like listen to them.
We can still do it now, and I love that.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Should we go
And select
to
discs.
your motivation?
Motivation.
The tree.
23.
Oh, hello. Okay. Let me read this for you. The tree. A stylized tree with roots and foliage equally emphasized is shown. This card symbolizes growth, knowledge, and development. That's literally your job. It is the tree of life with its roots deep in the soil and the past, giving strength to its branches. It stands for tradition, protection, and strength of the family tree that links all men together.
Oh, I like that. That's really good. That's my motivation, I suppose.
It really links well with the mother.
Support,
Yeah, like protection and connecting people, which is something I've really noticed you do really well, because you literally immediately started connecting us to people.
Oh, no, I love that, though. But, I mean, I think that the world that we all kind of inhabit, it's quite small anyway, and everybody's in this world for a particular reason, right? The reason I don't exist in, like, sort of the pop world or, you know, like, or drill or anything like that is because this has always been the world that I've been comfortable in. And I find a lot of comfort in community, and I don't think anything like rock and alternative and the metal community, there's nothing else like it. Everything else is very transient. I've known people who've been into this for 35 years, I would say, that friends that I'm still friends with now since I was doing stuff with Cacophonous. So, and it doesn't move, it doesn't change. It develops, but people stay within it because they've always got like a huge friend group in it. And you can always walk into a pub, Blackheart or something like that, and you always know somebody there. You know, I used to hate going out on my own. Now if I feel the need, I'll go out for a pint on my own. You'll always know somebody in one of the sort of the more left field pubs. I love it.
Yeah. And one of the things I really noticed about you when we met you years ago, it was at this conference the BBC did at the Tobacco Docks. And you had a panel with Nick Ruskell from Kerrang, which was great. And it was about NR. And I remember afterwards, like, I nervously came up to you and I was like, hello. But the thing I really noticed about you is that you listened to every single person that talks to you and you gave them your undivided attention.
Oh, bless, that's really sweet.
You waited until they'd finished, until you moved on to the next person. And I think that was like a really interesting moment for me, because that's the first time I'd seen someone do that and like give their time in that way. And I think that really links to what you've got here, like nurturing, protection, growing things. And I think that's a really important thing to give to artists, even if you're not working with them. Because I think that was like a moment where I was like, yeah, we can come here. There's spaces for people here.
But it's not just about artists, though. I think it's about kids who want to be in this world. And I mean, I do try and help people get into it, because the music industry it's a pit of vipers to a certain extent, but in the nicest possible way. They're all very friendly. They've not got teeth. There's a lot of slithering going on. But I just want people to come into it, be in it, and exist in it, and stay in it, because we need a new generation of people coming through. And there's less kids coming into the industry that are dealing with rock and alternative genres. I mean, everybody wants to. I mean, I do blame like sort of the X Factor and like sort of the reality TV effect, where everybody wants to be an influencer or something like that. And I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong. There's a place for everybody. But I need a new generation of kids who care about developing artists in this world. And I think our entire industry does, to be quite honest. And also, when I was growing up, there was nobody to show me what to do. You know, so I mean, I was like sort of bimbling around the industry on my own for years. You know, you'd go to conferences and everybody would be like gaggles of people, and it would be me like, hello, blue haired and fans. You know, wonder why nobody would speak to me. but you know, it's cut your own furrow, and also if you're nice, great. You know, if you're a bit of a knob, might have a bit of a problem. but you aren't knobs, were you? So there you go.
I'm glad we're not knobs. Yeah. But I think that's the thing. That's where the beast is like flanked by quite balancing forces, and you've got the tree. Like, I guess maybe that's what you're doing. So you're helping people navigate that beast.
Yeah, yes, I would say that's actually quite a good. That is actually incredibly sentient on so many levels, isn't it? The reading.
It always freaks people out. Yeah, every time.
It's a really good way to communicate with people.
Yeah.
Well, anything that like sort of is a conversation starter is always helpful, right? Because if you're a bit nervous or anything like that, it's always good.
It is good, and I like it because even though it's not literal, you can always find meaning in stuff like this. Yeah.
I love a good reading, though. Anyway.
Hell yeah.
Like it,
Shall we find your goal?
Hope.
The fool.
But does it count as an inverted fool then?
It probably does. And you know what? This is really funny because every single musician we ever interview gets this card, and
That's insane,
it's usually one of the middle cards. And this is literally like the musician's card. It's really interesting. So it's 32. I'll read it to you, and you'll see because it's actually quite a positive.
But actually, that's weird though because it's 23, 32 inverted, and 33 in the middle.
Oh my god! Goosebumps!
Look at that.
Goosebumps! That is crazy. You're right. Goodness me. Okay, 32. Let's go. The Fool. Piping merrily along the cliff top away from his house, perched perilously on the edge, the Fool dances along, skipping over the roots of the tree. There's the tree. The character can stand for folly and stupidity of the sort that brings so many ventures to ruin in oneself and in other people. It can also symbolize the holy fool, the person who can tell us truths of a sort which a wise man cannot. There can also be the sense of someone playing their own tune through life. It's literally what you did.
Oh my god, that is a musician's card, isn't it? Yeah. Ironically, I'm not a musician. I'm not remotely musical myself.
But you are creative because you can
I'm very creative, yeah.
Yeah, you've
just
got
not musical.
Your parents played instruments, though, right?
No, my granddad. Actually, my dad is so non-musical. My granddad played the accordion and organ. My mum plays piano.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I can play with one finger. I can play chopsticks or fairies. So badly, out of time. But that's really interesting. That's really interesting
because you have played your own tune for your life and you forged your own path. Yeah, and now the tree is at your feet.
Yeah. That's fascinating. That's really fascinating.
I'm glad. It was an amazing reading, honestly, and it is super balanced. And I think it's kind of freakish the number the number symmetry, I guess.
Yeah, that's just really scary, isn't it? But actually, we'd like sort of 23, 32 with 33 in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, and literally the Fool has got the tree, and this is quite, it looks like he's almost, is he in woods? Is that a corridor? What is that?
Well, it could be, look, it could be a tree or a labyrinth.
A labyrinth, yes. Very Henson.
Very Henson, yeah.
Bringing it back around.
Love a bit Henson.
Stuck in the black hot toilets.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's too light and too clean.
It's too clean there. That's amazing. Do you have any advice or anything you want to say to people who are listening / watching?
Just to young artists, don't be scared. Go and speak to people. If you know anybody like myself, if you see me out, come and speak to me. These lot will tell you I don't bite. I've got time for everybody, and I genuinely enjoy it because I think there's a lot to be learnt from fandom and from people who are in bands. I've never been in a band. I wouldn't have the strength of character, I don't think, to be able to do that, and I would also be terrified of being on stage in front of hundreds of people. But I mean, that's the main thing. And also, don't be afraid of being yourself. Like, find your true north, stick with it, be authentic, don't be a dick.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, I could just keep asking you for advice over and over again, but
well, here to help.
This has been great. If you were in a band and you weren't scared of going on stage, what would you do right now to take yourself to the next level?
In a band? God. I'd be looking at the image that I have personally. I'd be looking at what I'm doing writing-wise, and is writing on my own enough? Does anybody else need to come and write with me? And I'd also be looking at expanding my network and audience. And not being afraid of doing that. And actually not being afraid of asking for help. One of the biggest things that we find with artists is, like we were saying before about how horrendous the social media world is and like sort of the digital world. And there's always people that you can ask, and there's always people that can help you. And there's a thing called the YouTube that is really good on going on things like that, just to have a look. Yeah. So I mean, I would try and like look at audience development, because we get so many artists who send us emails and go, this is our stuff, and they've got like 3 followers on Facebook and 133 people, which is actually fair play on Spotify, you know. But it's like, just there's more work to be done, and it's not as hard as you think. But a lot of artists feel almost embarrassed to promote themselves. Yeah. And I mean, I know sometimes it does feel a bit cringe talking about things like that, but it's something that's got to be done. And once you've done it, you'll find that you'll find other people and who are like-minded souls. And the other thing is Bandcamp is my most favourite thing, thanks to lockdown. Bandcamp Fridays, so much money was spent. But that is a great source of discoverability. And if you need to find your tribe, look at that, and look at, if you like this, you will like that on Bandcamp. The algorithm on there is brilliant because it is by fans for fans, and it's so super intuitive, and there's some really good stuff on there. Really good stuff. I
feel like Bandcamp is definitely like the digital equivalent of like just going around the record store and just digging through things.
But going around your local really weird, where did you get this from record store, which is like, what even is it?
Yeah.
But that's the kind of stuff that we need, and that's what we need to do. That's what I'm saying about the cultural atheism thing. I don't like the fact when people just go, I just like this. And I'm like, well, if you only like that, you're never going to discover anything else, are you? You don't know that you only like that. Maybe you will like orchestral country black metal rather than just orchestral black metal. You know, you never know. You might invent a new genre.
Have you ever had to help people that are suddenly getting a lot more attention for the first time? Because I can imagine that's a real like mind fuck for a lot of artists, that maybe you're breaking them and then suddenly they're dealing with like more attention online, more attention at shows and things like that. That can't always be easy.
It's not an easy thing for an artist, but it's also it's a good gauge of people's strength of character, I think, to be honest, because it's what they're striving for, and it does scare people. I mean, the worst stuff is the keyboard warriors and the online, like sort of the trolls and stuff, which I still think there's got to be a way of doing more stuff around that, because some of it is vile. I mean, properly vile, and we've had like sort of cease and desists to a few people like that, not here but previously, that I do find very uncomfortable. That is something that's hard to navigate, but with success comes crazies as well, sadly, which isn't the nicest thing in the world. But it's almost like when you get your first stalker, well done, which is an awful thing to say, but it's so true. It's so bad. But I mean, the good thing there is you get to a certain level. It's getting, if an artist doesn't have a manager, it's how you get them to that next level whereby you might help them with a publishing deal or a merch deal, or you help them with tour management and things like that. So it's stuff that I've always done through Visible Noise and through Cacophonous, and it's stuff that I don't have to do a lot here because in a lot of cases things are already in place. But when they're not, we've still got the power to do it and the network to do it as well. And I very much like doing that because at least I know the people around them are good. Not that the teams that we don't have in place are good, you know what I mean, aren't good. But I know that it's not just going to be some mate or some random that's like sort of jumped in to do something.
Absolutely, yeah.
The last thing I was going to ask was, do you kind of lament like the way of networking where or do you think it still exists that you could go to a pub and kind of make the connections that you used to? So I think, was it Visible Noise that was started in the Intrepid Fox?
No. Well, actually, you know what? It might have been. Christ, where did you read that? Because I think that might be right.
I think I saw it in a previous interview.
I think that might be. Good better memory than me.
But it was,
must stop the wine.
But I used to love that place as well. It was always
the original
Wardour Street.
one. Oh, God, yeah, the Wardour Street one was brilliant. Yeah. I think the idea of it actually came from there. God, that's good. I'm gonna have to go back to the mold. But I think you're right, yeah. Because I used to go in there all the time because I used to think it was the most exotic place in the world, and it used to be full of really beautiful people. And then the alternative world seemed to collide, and then all of the tribes seemed to fall away, and everybody was just wearing black jeans with hair in it.
It was about 2006. I think it closed, right? Around about that time.
It was when Visible Noise stopped. It was about 2012.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I can't even. It started in 1998, and I left in 2016. Actually, so it was even later than that. So I came in here in 2016. But I think you are right. I think that being able to go and sit and like sort of make connections in the pub makes things a lot different. And I think after lockdown it changed for a lot of people. I mean, definitely a lot of younger people find it hard to communicate because they've sat and looked at screens. I mean, imagine if you're at college and you're doing all your college, like that would be in the bin. I mean, I was bad enough in person because I mean, if you weren't interested, I'd be involved. You know, thank God Amazon and like we didn't have mobile phones then because I would have just been titting around on Instagram. I wouldn't be remotely interested. I'd failed. Put it that way. But I think just having like interactions in person, it makes such a lot of difference. And I think that's why I've got a really good network of people around me because I've known them since there wasn't anything else. You know, and I think you find that in people. And I mean, it's really interesting talking to you guys actually because this feels incredibly natural. And not everybody can do this either, and I'm sure you know that. But it's quite a weird thing when you go and like sort of you go and speak to a college class or something. And you go in and you're like, right, so who reads Metal Hammer? And people are like, nobody. And you're like, what? And it's like, but they're all in bands and they want to be in Metal Hammer, but they don't read it.
Yeah.
What do you read? Do you look at the internet? It's like,
weird, isn't it?
Sort your lives out.
I've probably still got hundreds of the free CDs in a drawer somewhere. The Fear Candy ones.
Yeah.
The Terrorizer ones, the Zero Tolerance ones, and they used to all sit in the glove compartment of the car. Yeah.
Well, as I say, I've just cleaned my living room out, and that's exactly what I've been finding. And I'm like loads of prog CDs from years ago, the Metal Hammer Kerrang cover mounts, Kerrang compilations, as in Kerrang compilation with a K. You know, but I wholeheartedly agree. And I mean, I hope something like that comes of this, whereby you can start doing live versions of this. Because imagine if you could do something like this up at like somewhere like Signature Brew, or even the one in Haggerston. And you got like so because do you do anything?
They play. You guys played in Haggerston, right?
Yeah. So I would have a show with them.
Yeah, that's what I
thought. But the Signature.
How do you mean? Like doing a live
That's in a live version of the podcast, so you do like live reading, so you get some guests in, and then you just have a chat.
That would be really cool.
It's a really good idea. Do you do anything with London Metal Coalition? Do you know those guys?
Not Coalition. We know London Doom Collective.
Oh, okay.
But not the Coalition.
Because the London Metal Coalition, we did some stuff with them. Oh God, they're actually in a. This is going to be the most random conversation now. Two of the guys in it are in a It's called Hugin and Moonin, and they're a specific leaning Morris troupe, but they're based on Odin's Ravens.
Yeah, I was like,
Black
I
and
recognise those words.
Yeah, they're absolutely fantastic as well. They're brilliant.
Fascinating.
But doing something like that, I reckon that the Signature Brew guys would be up for doing this, you know.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I will introduce you.
I really liked it there as well.
I loved it there. Great
Well,
vibe.
there's two. There's one up at
There's a big
Black Horse
one.
Road, and there's a little one in Haggerston.
We were
as
going to
well.
play the big one. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have a microphone, but it's interesting. No, it's fine. Before you guys had the idea to do a podcast, you were interested in maybe doing like a promotion company,
Yeah.
doing gigs and stuff, which was you wanted to bring people together. But then obviously lockdown happened, we started doing this, so it's like another way, you know, talking to you, talking to people in bands, you talk to other artists, people around the industry, and it kind of like it just helps create that creative tissue between people, which is like super important at all. And like that sounds like a very good natural step, but I think you'd need to, I don't know if we necessarily think of ourselves as having an audience, like we do, and like people watch our videos and follow us and stuff, but I think it's like we would do it even if we didn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get
because
it.
it's like that's what's
So
important.
imagine if you could combine forces
Yeah.
with another collective.
That's where you become more powerful.
Exactly.
Because, like, sort of the guys behind it now, I'll do you a hookup after this because they're really lovely as well. They're really nice and really interesting people, super smart as well. But they exist in places like the Dev, and I mean they go and do stuff at. They're doing stuff at Werewolf Brewery in Camden. You know those guys?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's the Canadian Psychobillies. Really good. Little tip there. Look at me, I'm like anyway, any more beer commentary on this? But they've been doing stuff there, and they've also done some stuff I think they've been doing some stuff in Haggerston, but I mean anything to bring the community back together. I genuinely think, and there's loads of young metal acts coming through who just don't know what to do. And I mean this is the kind of thing. Comment on this video now if you want to be on this podcast, but comment below. But I think it's a genius thing to do. I think just having conversations and having really interesting conversations, and the way that you do this, it's super smart. And it's really nice.
I think we like metal because it's a kind of music where you can connect to the music much more easily. It's a lot more raw and vulnerable a lot of the time. And then metal shows are where people go and you feel a sense of connection. And I think that's what we grew up with, is we felt connection with like band, like MySpace to a degree. Like you could go on a message board, you can talk to someone about the same band and you were connected just because you liked the same thing that you were really passionate about. And I think now we're a lot more passive in how we consume stuff because now we go online to consume instead of connect. I think that's the big difference between back and then.
Very smart, actually. So you lean back, and you're just waiting for it to jump on you more than anything. Whereas you're a crate digger like me. Well, not that I'm saying you do that, you know what I mean. But it's easier to like sort of have stuff jump on you and the algorithms be fed online.
Exactly. Yeah. We go online and it's like a very different experience to how I felt consuming media. When it was physical, you were going on a quest to find it and like leafing through WH Smith to find like a copy of an alternative magazine. It wasn't like Top Gear or something. Yeah. And I think this is like our way of sort of getting that connection, our selfish way of just going up to people and being like, come on this and let's have a really deep conversation, and then people can join in and watch if they want, because this was the online element was almost secondary, but I think it would be amazing to do it live. I think it would be really interesting to have more people participating in that. I think the energy would be really different.
There's ways and means of doing it, seriously, because I think I generally do my best work in the pub, and it's been said a few times. But because it's not in the office, it's not in your house. Everybody's like sort of inhibitions are down. It's a place that's literally built for people to have conversations and connect through centuries. Since trip to Jerusalem was built.
Kind of summons images of like Plato and the great philosophers.
The symposium.
Sitting around the symposium.
Yeah.
Or the monkey looking at his own skull. More like it. But let's start to be continued.
Yeah,
on that one, definitely.
Let's do it. That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I can't imagine how busy you must be as well.
I've really enjoyed it. It's been lovely to meet you as well, Floyd, and you, Sha. So,
absolute pleasure.
Again, sorry, big time. Since I met you like 10 years ago, but you know. Well, I've really enjoyed that. Thank you very much, and that's very enlightening.
Thank you. Thank you for enlightening us as well.
Here to help.
Like and subscribe.